Hey folks, I want to talk to you about the cost of probation here. I'm on a hike. It's a good time to chat over some things. So, there's somebody who's recently released from prison after spending a number of years in excess of 5, which is the Virginia mandatory minimum, for a crime he never actually did, for a non-real child he never solicited but was pimped in front of him. And what does he have to do now? Well, he's on probation for 3 years. So he's under certain rules for 3 years. And he has to pay, he finds out, excuse me, some $95 a session for private sex therapy. Remember, they don't even know how to conduct sex therapy. They don't know what works. They don't know that what doesn't work. And he has to pay an additional $45 for group therapy. So basically, he's in a quandary right now. He can't work in several locations that he wants to, because one would be pouring wine in a public setting, and wine, of course, is alcohol, and alcohol, as everybody knows, lowers your inhibitions, which of course makes you want to have sex with children. And if you're having trouble wrapping your head around that mind bender, that's because it's bullshit. Oh, could it? Yes. Does it in every instance? No, absolutely not. So not only can't he earn the money to help his family or live with his family, because he has 2 teenage daughters who were small children when he went in, but he also has to pay for things that he cannot pay. And if he cannot pay for those things, then he goes back to prison. Isn't that nice? That's a violation of probation. They can take him back to court and put him in. Now, they have made it more difficult in Virginia to do that. They would have to charge him with something additional, which if you see my videos, you know that they're more than happy to do. Of course, in my case, they had nothing, so they made it up and the judge laughed it out of court. But in this particular individual's case, and many other individuals, they may find something, and in places where they don't have the law favoring you for so-called probation violations, which are manufactured by the probation officer, oftentimes, not all the time, you're in a whole world of hurt if they do that, because then they give you backup time. So you get the probation violations, which might be in a year or two, like it is for each violation here in Virginia, if they can make it stick. But you also get backup time. What is backup time? Well, if you're like me, you had a sentence of 3 years with all but 6 months, or 7 months rather, suspended. Sorry, a lot of bugs out here. And 7 months suspended. If they had nailed me, I would have had 2 years for each of the alleged probation violations, plus an additional 2.5 years to meet that full 3 years, which would have meant an additional 4.5 to 5.5 years addition, this time in prison, not jail, again, based on what one individual said. Because if you think you have due process, the more you go through the system, especially if you plead guilty, you are giving up all your constitutional rights. Most people don't know that. You are agreeing not to appeal the decision, which is what the feds will do. When you hear these federal prosecutors and former prosecutors saying, yeah, I did this and this is what you do, and it's all, if you listen to them, very favorable to the prosecution. The defense has very few cards. And so here you are in a situation where you're out on probation. You can't leave the county a lot of times. You're not allowed to get a driver's license sometimes. You're not allowed to work where they will hire you in hard to fill areas. You're not allowed to do a number of things, certainly not live with your family and reconstruct your relationship with your spouse and with your children. And then they turn around and they say, well, we just don't understand why you're not able to get your act together. And the case of an individual I'm thinking of now, He thought he was in a tier 1 because that's what he had been told and what he had signed for his paperwork, allowing him 15 years on the registry. In effect, he is on for 25 as a tier 2. When he called to complain about this disparity, he was told, too bad, that's what the Virginia State Police did. When I complained about VSP, they retaliated against me and threatened to arrest me. When I called the office of the Department of Corrections Office of Probation, when my probation officer exceeded her authority and actually tried to block me seeing my own mother, who was in memory care, suffering from Alzheimer's during this whole thing with me, excuse me, the probation officer enlisted the aid of my family and prevented me from actually being able to see my mother by getting a court order to prevent me from seeing my own family. Nice, huh? This is what they do. So if you think it's fair, if you delude yourself into thinking this is a fair process, think again.